We are the outsiders, and we are always near. We hear every noise you make, every word you speak. Today, we'll show you how you look from the outside. And yes, once again, you won't want to hear it. You say you've stopped believing in gods. We smile. You've only switched altars. Yesterday, you bowed to stones and clouds. Today, you bow to numbers on a screen. Your new God doesn't demand hymns. It demands a PIN code. It doesn't promise paradise. It promises cashback. It doesn't give revelations. It sends push notifications. You call this an economy? We call it a cult. Look, honestly, your God has its sacred texts, financial reports, its prophets, analysts, its priests, bankers, its shrines, stock exchanges, and its calendar of fasts and feasts, paydays, tax season, Black Fridays. It even has its own hell, negative balance, loan denied, bankruptcy, and its own heaven, passive income while you sleep. We've watched you wearing plastic amulets around your necks, tapping them against terminals like icons. Beep. And the sins of consumption are forgiven again. We've seen you at midnight refreshing your banking app, waiting like for an Easter miracle. Did the paycheck come? Did it come? And when the sacred number appears, you do what all true believers do. You immediately offer it back to the deity, to the supermarket, the marketplace, the sale, the altar of delivery by 10 p.m. Today, why is your God made of paper, metal, and zeros? And yet, you still call it value. Why does your mood depend on the arrow of a chart? Why are you ready to hate each other over a logo on a bag? Why is it easier to sell your time than to admit to yourself why you were given it? Picture this. Morning. A person doesn't wake to birdsong, but to the vibration of a credit card notification. The bank has sent important news. He doesn't get up, doesn't take a deep breath, doesn't look out the window. He checks his balance. His heart doesn't beat in rhythm with life, but in rhythm with interest rates. The first word of the day isn't good morning, but how much? Picture this. Evening. A crowd in a shopping mall moves like a river stripped of its banks. People carry bags like pilgrims carry candles. On the third floor, a glass cathedral selling identical rectangles of happiness. On the first, the altar of discounts, where worshippers leave their last bills to earn a piece of the illusion called a good deal. The smells, coffee, plastic, perfume. The soundtrack, just louder than your thoughts, just quieter than your conscience. You call it shopping. We call it the liturgy of consumption. Your God is kind only as long as you can pay. If your wallet is empty, grace disappears. If your credit history is ruined, you are exiled from the paradise of installments into the hell of prepayments. You've built an entire metaphysics around a number that means nothing on its own. You're willing to work jobs, you hate to buy things, you don't need to impress people you don't like. You call that adult life. We call it voluntary slavery with a smile. You so easily give your God the one thing you don't have much of. Time. The rarest currency. You trade hours for numbers, numbers for things, things for dust. At the end of the cycle, all you have left is exhaustion and the sense that you need just a little more. Always a little more. And so you return to the altar of the workplace, pushing buttons, moving boxes, polishing KPI plaques, the way you once polished stone idols. Your doctrine has its dogmas. Freedom is when you can buy. Success is when it costs more. A person's value is their hourly rate. And of course, it has sins, being inefficient, spending the wrong way, missing a payment. Your heretics are those who refuse to play. You mock them as if they're insane, whispering, "You can't live without credit. You won't survive without a rating. Without savings, you're nothing." We've heard you say, money is just a tool. But tools don't make you cry in front of a payment calendar. Tools don't explain why you'll give up sleep, family, and health for a checkmark that says, "bonus received." Tools don't turn the opening bell of the stock exchange into a church chime. You don't use a tool, you serve it. And you call that rationality. Look at your sacred places, the exchanges. There, just like in cathedrals, the bells ring at the start and end of service. There, priests in expensive suits speak in a language only the initiated can understand. The markets are nervous. Liquidity has dried up. The rate said, "Amen." There, people pray to charts like stained glass, trying to read destiny in the lines. They believe the line knows the future, the way they once believed a priest knew the gods. Your God is merciless. He loves only those he already loves. He rewards the already rewarded. He blesses capitalization and condemns negative equity. His miracles are compound interest. His prophets are ratings agencies. His Pope is the central bank. A single word from him can turn your bread into stone, your hope into inflation. And still you insist, we are free. Free to measure freedom by a credit score. Free not to live, but to serve as debt. Free to sell the best years of your life for an invisible number that promises happiness later, when it will already be too late to live happily. We've seen civilizations where people gave away gold for their dreams. You give away your dreams for gold. They valued the person and used money. You value money and use the person, even when that person is yourselves. We don't deny trade is convenient, accounting is reasonable, economy is a way to cooperate. But you turn convenience into theology, accounting into meaning, contracts into religion. You stopped seeing life behind the price tags. Everything you touch gains a price and loses its value. This is only the beginning. We have many questions for your paper god. For example, why are you so willing to sacrifice everything that can't be bought? Time, self-respect, closeness with those you love, all for him. And what will remain of your faith when one day the numbers vanish from the screen? Your ancestors lived on the edge of hunger. Every day was a battle for meat, for roots, for water. You didn't know the word wealth. You only knew the word hunger. And then one day you noticed, if you exchanged with your neighbor, you could survive. One gave skins, another berries, another a spear. It seemed like simple cooperation. But that was when the first idol was born, the idea of value. Picture this, an ancient marketplace, dust underfoot, the sun blazing, people laying their goods on the ground. Fish smelling of rot, wool packed into tight bundles, copper jewelry glinting in the sun, everyone shouting louder than the next, "My sheep is better. My grain is cleaner." It wasn't a market. It was the first liturgy of a new cult. And every deal was a small prayer to the goddess of profit. Coins didn't exist yet. People traded things. But even then, they began to believe value could be measured. We've seen civilizations where trade was a celebration, where gifts were offered not for profit, but for friendship. In your case, exchange immediately became a form of control. Then you invented the coin, a tiny piece of metal that couldn't feed you or warm you. But you decided, this is value. We watched people lining up before rulers to receive minted coins. On them was the ruler's face. You didn't believe in the metal, you believed in the face carved into it. That was the first icon of your new god, money as power. From then on, your coins traveled farther than you did. They passed from hand to hand, outlived wars and empires, and always returned as the main character of your history. Your cities could vanish, but coins would still be found in the earth centuries later, shining like relics that never decay. And then you invented an even trickier ritual: debt. Picture a small clay tablet with scratches on it. One man gives another grain, and in return he gets a promise. I'll return it in autumn. And the promise becomes more valuable than the grain itself. You had invented magic. The goods disappeared, but the debt remained. And it began to rule the person more strongly than hunger. We saw debt turn a neighbor into a slave, a friend into an enemy. At first, you traded gifts. Then you started trading the future. It was your first deal with the paper card. I give you tomorrow. But even that wasn't enough. You decided repayment must include more than what was taken. You called it interest. We remember the first scene. A merchant lends, then demands just a little extra, and within years, his house is full of slaves because no one could ever repay debt with interest. Thus was born the first sacred mathematics. Give me one, return two. And you called it fair. We know civilizations where debts never grew, where every new year wiped the slate clean and life began anew. You chose the opposite. Debt became inheritance. If the father couldn't repay, the son paid instead. You turned debt into a family curse. That was the true hell, created long before your religions. Every step you took toward progress was a step toward the altar of money. You tamed metal not for beauty, but for minting. You wrote on clay tablets, not poetry, but bookkeeping. You built your first cities not for science, but for markets. Your God was not born in the heavens. He was born in the marketplace. And from that day, you stopped simply living. You began to count. You could have stopped at coins, a small piece of metal with a ruler's face, and already entire nations were ready to kill or die to hold it. But you went further. Your God was greedy for new forms. Picture this: Italy, 13th century, a narrow street, stone houses, the smell of wine and manure. In a small shop, two men sit at a heavy wooden table. Before them is no gold, no silver, just a piece of parchment. They write, stamp it, and suddenly the paper is worth more than metal. The man leaves with this paper and can buy bread, a house, a ship. A miracle! You had invented the bill of exchange. Paper that meant nothing by itself suddenly became stronger than coin. You had created true magic, turning promises into wealth. We saw the first banks appear. Their very name was displayed openly in the squares. People came, sat at a bench, banco, and entrusted their coins to someone else's hands. Why? Because their new god demanded it. Temples were too small, so you built him new shrines, offices with guards, safes, and seals. And in those sanctuaries, you performed a new sacrament, turning money into something else. You invented the deposit. Give now, receive more later. It was a new kind of promise. Paradise not after death, but in a year with interest. You invented credit. Take now, pay forever. It was your new indulgence, the chance to buy happiness in advance and suffer afterward. Your God became even more cunning. Now he could sell not only the present, but the future. You gave him your days, your months, your years in advance. Picture this: Amsterdam, 17th century. In a large hall, merchants sit at long tables. Before them, books filled with numbers. They whisper rumors about ships. This one is bringing spices. This one sank in a storm. And suddenly, the price of paper changes. People shout, sell, buy. This was the first stock market performance. No one had seen the spices. No one had smelled the cinnamon. No one had touched the silk. But they traded papers as if they were trading fates. We watched your stock exchanges grow into temples. A bell rang to open and close the service. Priests spoke in a tongue unintelligible to mortals. The markets are worried. The index fell. Capitalization increased. It was a new mass, where instead of hymns, you heard tickers. But your God couldn't stop. Coins were heavy, gold cumbersome. And so you invented another miracle. Paper money. You printed it by the millions. And the more you printed, the more you believed that paper itself was value. We saw people walk to market with sacks of banknotes to buy a loaf of bread, and you called that a crisis. Your God loves tricks like this, turning paper into nothing, then turning nothing back into paper, and finally, the digit. Today, your God no longer lives in coins or paper. He lives on screens. You look at a balance and believe in it as devoutly as you once believed in the sun. You tap a card on a terminal and beep. The sacrament is complete. You press send transfer, and like magic, the money vanishes from you and appears with another. You call this technology. We call it the new magic. Your God has traveled a long path from metal to paper, from paper to promises, from promises to digits. And with each step, you lost touch with reality. Today, most of you never even touch real money. Your coins are database entries. Your wealth is glowing digits on a screen. And yet those digits control you more than ever. Every religion has dogmas, and your paper God is no exception. You didn't inscribe them in holy books. You printed them in ads, taught them in business schools, repeated them in offices and seminars. But that made them no less sacred. First dogma: rich should good. You're convinced that if someone got rich, it means they're smarter, harder working, more worthy. You call it success. Picture this: a motivational seminar. On stage, a man in an expensive suit. Behind him, a screen full of charts. He says, if I could do it, anyone can. The audience applauds. No one asks if his success was luck, inheritance, or fraud. You believe him because your God demands belief. For you, wealth stark schon blessing. We know civilizations where luck wasn't treated as merit, but generosity was, where applause went not to the one who hoarded, but to the one who shared. With you, a person can build their life on the bones of others and still be called a role model. Second dogma: poor schaukst guilty. If you don't have money, it must mean you're lazy. You didn't try hard enough. You're to blame. It sounds like a sermon. Your suffering is deserved. Picture an office. A manager looks at an employee with scorn. If you're poor, it's because you just don't work hard enough. The employee nods in shame as if confessing sins. Your God made poverty not just misfortune. He made it shame. You're not afraid of being poor. You're afraid of looking poor. That's why you buy expensive things even on credit, to hide your sin behind a logo. Third dogma: success must be displayed. It's not enough to be rich. Others must see it. That's why your cities are full of skyscraper icons, car symbols, outfit signs. Picture social media. A person takes a selfie with a $10 coffee cup, posts it with the caption, "Working on myself," though really they're working on an image. Your God demands public worship. If you're rich but no one sees it, it's like a prayer without witnesses. We know civilizations where wealth was hidden, where flaunting it was bad manners. With you, it's the opposite. If you don't show it, you're a suspicious believer. Fourth dogma: money cleanses. When your rich feel society's eyes on them with judgment, they stage a performance. You call it charity. Picture a charity ball, a giant hall, chandeliers, champagne, reporters, millionaires smiling for photos, donating a fraction of their profit to hospitals or schools. Applause follows. You call it good. We call it an indulgence. Your God teaches you can exploit workers, wreck cities, poison nature, as long as afterward you give a share to charity. A check becomes a ticket of absolution. Fifth dogma: time stash of money. You repeat it like a mantra, and without noticing, you turn time itself into merchandise. Every second must generate profit. Every action must be efficient. Picture: a man sits in the park. He takes out his phone, checks his email. He feels guilty just sitting and looking at the sky. He must prove his minute is paying off. Your God stole from you the most important thing: the ability to spend time on what has no price, on silence, on love, on wonder. You're not allowed. If time doesn't make money, it's considered wasted. We've seen civilizations where time was sacred precisely because it couldn't be bought. With you, it's the opposite. Only what can be sold is considered sacred. Your dogmas aren't in the Bible, the Quran, or the Vedas, but they live in every commercial, every motivational post, every talk about success. You've turned morality into accounting. You measure virtue by income, wisdom by investments, holiness by the Forbes list. We've seen you praying to these dogmas. You line up at ATMs like pilgrims at shrines. You wait for bonuses and sales the way people once waited for rain. You sacrifice time, health, and dreams for a number that, by tomorrow, will again be not enough. Your God is powerful. He made his dogmas so unquestionable that even those who suffer keep believing, I just need to try harder, be more efficient, earn more. You become your own cult. Your God loves architecture. In the past, you built stone cathedrals where people bowed and listened to sermons about eternal life. Today, you build shopping malls, vast glass cathedrals where people bow their heads once more, this time overpayment terminals. Picture this. Saturday, a mega mall. The crowd moves like a procession, escalators like stairways to heaven. People carry shopping bags like candles. Children clutch their parents' hands like pilgrims holding each other not to get lost in the holy march. The air smells of popcorn, perfume, and plastic bags. On each floor, chapels, one for clothing, one for electronics, one for food. People step inside, perform the ritual of exchanging money for the blessing of goods, and step out with faces slightly happier. For about 10 minutes. You call it shopping. We call it weekly liturgy. Your God invented a special holiday, Black Friday. Picture: the doors of a mall swing open and the crowd storms inside like into a temple at the strike of a bell. People run, shove, fight over televisions as if they were relics. Cameras roll, anchors announce, discount holiday. You call it a good deal. We call it a mass pilgrimage to the hell of absurdity. Your God loves symbols. Instead of a cross on your chest, a logo on your shirt. Instead of a candle, a glowing smartphone in your hand. Instead of holy water, branded coffee in a paper cup. You carry these symbols everywhere, showing them to each other to prove, I am a true believer. I bought this. I belong to the community. The stock exchange has become your Vatican. Picture a hall filled with monitors, people in suits staring at the jagged lines like stained glass. When the graph rises, they cheer. When it falls, they clutch their heads. The opening bell rings like the start of Mass. Analysts write prophecies, investors quote them like sermons. Crowds believe destiny is hidden in the candlesticks. We've seen civilizations read the future in the stars. You read it in candlestick charts. The difference is, at least the stars existed. Your God has his sacraments. One of them is called delivery. Picture a courier climbing stairs. He carries a box like a priest bearing an offering. A person opens the door, takes it, and thanks him like a worshipper thanking a priest. Bless you. Inside the box is a piece of plastic that will be forgotten in a week. But in that moment of receiving, the person feels revelation. I am saved again. Other civilizations offered sacrifices to gods. You offer sacrifices to yourselves. You pray to the things you just bought, even knowing the joy will vanish faster than the receipt from your pocket. Your God created electronic prayer books, marketplaces. There you can buy everything, from bread to human organs. Algorithms feed you recommendations as if they were revelations. It will please you to also purchase this. You scroll the way people once scrolled psalters. You add to cart the way they once left offerings. You press pay and feel relieved, as if you'd fulfilled a religious duty. Even your lines look like rituals. People waiting at checkout like at confessionals, each one waiting for their turn, ready to recite the magic formula. Please approve. The terminal beeps, the receipt prints, and just like that, the sin of owing is absolved. Your cashiers are the new priests. They perform the sacrament 1,000 times a day. You insist you live in a secular world, but we see you've only changed symbols. Where once was a cross, now a logo. Where once was a psalm, now a jingle. Where once was a sermon, now a marketing pitch. Where once was a pilgrimage to church, now a trip to the mall. Your God has tricked you again. You think you're buying things. In truth, you're buying permission to believe a little longer. Your God works subtly. He doesn't just build temples and stock exchanges. He settles inside you, in your habits, your fears, your dreams. He no longer needs executioners or armies. You yourself have become his temple. Picture this, a student in a dorm room, textbooks on the desk, phone beside them. He opens his banking app and sees credit card debt. The number grows every month. He's only 20 and he's already sold his future to the present. He takes a side job, sacrifices sleep, health, and dreams of another life, just to feed the debt. Each payment feels like a little prayer. Please don't punish me with late fees. Picture this, a young family in a mortgage apartment, children playing on the floor while parents stare at the bill. The numbers scare them more than war on the news. They know if they can't pay, their home disappears. But it's not even their home. It's the bank's. They are merely tenants of their God with a 30-year lease. You call it ownership. We call it marriage to a bank. Your God gave you a new kind of guilt, poverty. You're ashamed not of sin, but of an empty wallet. You hide old clothes so as not to look behind. You buy logos to appear worthy. Even if you're deep in debt, even if your fridge is empty, the main thing is to convince the neighbor you're on the level. Picture this: a phone call from the bank, the voice on the line cold and polite. When will you make your payment? The person blushes, even though no one sees. Their heart shrinks as if caught in a crime. This isn't just debt. It's the feeling that you're bad, that you're guilty, that you're a heretic who broke the dogmas of the cult. Your God doesn't only take your money, He takes your dignity. You created the notion of a credit score. It's your new heaven or hell judgment. A good score, and doors open, loans, houses, cars. A bad score, and you're cast out, denied trust. Your numbers have become your new name. You are not a person, you are a score in a system. Picture this: someone applies for a loan. The reply comes, denied. They feel shame, as if humiliated in public. No one saw, no one knows, yet they feel that God has turned away from them. We've seen civilizations where debt never became a stigma, where a mistake didn't ruin a life. With you, a financial misstep becomes a life sentence. You call it responsibility. We call it eternal slavery. Your budgeting apps are confessionals. At night, you open them and stare at expense charts. Red bars scream, "You spent too much. You are unworthy." You promise yourself to repent, to be more frugal, to sin less. And in the morning, you do it all again, only to feel even guiltier. Your God has settled in your psyche. He whispers, "You're not successful enough, not rich enough, not efficient enough." And you believe him. You live with that voice inside you, like with a personal demon. We've seen civilizations where a person's worth wasn't measured by their balance, where rich and poor sat at the same table, and no one calculated their dignity in coins. With you, a person without money is treated as an empty vessel, unworthy of attention. Your God made you fear not death, but debt collectors, not hell, but bank notifications, not sin, but missed payments. You built hell inside yourselves. Your God doesn't just live in people's hearts. He rules entire societies. You've built a world where everything sacred is for sale, where everything has a price, where even life itself is measured in currency. Picture this: a hospital, white walls, smell of antiseptic. In the hallway, a mother sits with her child. The doctor says, "We have the medicine, but it's expensive. Without insurance, sorry." The mother counts money while her child coughs beside her. This isn't medicine. This is your new judgment day. Your God says, "You want to live? Pay." In other words, healing was the duty of the community. For you, it became a service with a price tag. Picture this: the housing market. A person comes to see an apartment. A tiny room, peeling walls, a window facing a concrete well. The agent names the price, and the person realizes it means half a lifetime of debt. But there's no choice. A home, which should be shelter, has become a sacred relic for investors. People don't buy apartments to live in them, but to store capital. You worship square meters the way ancients worshipped stones. Your cities are full of empty tomb-like houses bought for profit, while thousands sleep on the street. Picture this: war, tanks rolling down streets, bombers overhead. Politicians speak of values, of justice, of freedom. But the papers in their safes tell the real story: oil, gas, rare metals. Your God demands sacrifices. He's not satisfied with markets and stock exchanges. He wants blood. You call it geopolitics. We call it a holy war of your paper God. We've seen civilizations where wealth was shared, where no one starved while a neighbor had excess. In your world, it's normal. One feasts on golden meals served on diamond plates, while another digs through trash. You look at it and shrug. That's just the way it is. No, that's just the way your God is. Your God invented a new caste system, not by blood, but by income. Now the rich live in gated communities, drive gated cars, heal in gated clinics. The poor remain outside the walls. You don't use titles like Lord and Peasant anymore. But you have credit cards, limits, and access levels. And they divide you just as harshly as castle walls did in the Middle Ages. Picture this: a corporate office, dozens of people in a hall. On the screen, graphs, budgets, plans. One line item, cost optimization. Translation, layoffs. For them, it's just numbers. For someone else, it's the end of a life, a home, a family. Your God teaches, if the numbers look good, the decision is right. You obey not people, but spreadsheets, and spreadsheets have become your law. We've seen civilizations where resources were considered common, where wealth was measured by how many people could be happy. For you, it's the opposite. Happiness is measured by corporate profit. If profit goes up, then everything is fine. Even if thousands of people fall into poverty, your God stripped you of simplicity. You fear sickness because it's expensive. You fear losing your job because then you're nobody. You fear old age because without savings it's hell. You call this modern life. We call it slavery with a banking license. Your God proved too gluttonous. Your hours, your nerves, your families weren't enough. He swallowed the planet itself. Earth stopped being a home. It became a warehouse. Not a mother, but a cash register. Not a miracle, but a spreadsheet entry. Picture this: a giant warehouse outside a city. Metal walls, thousands of lights. Inside, mountains of boxes, each with a logo. Yesterday they were ordered, today they arrived. Tomorrow, half will be in the trash. Behind every package was a truck. Behind every truck, a factory. Behind every factory, smoke in the sky. Your God created an endless ritual. Produce, buy, throw away. And the garbage mountains, that's not faith anymore. That's the part you bury underground. We've seen your landfills. Miles of earth buried under the remains of your prayers. Plastic bottles, wrappers, broken gadgets. Every dump is a modern temple. There lie the confessions of your consumer faith, sealed in plastic. You say, it's just waste. We call it the ruins of your religion. Picture this: an oil rig in the ocean, waves crash against steel legs. On the horizon, a sunset, spoiled by a gas flare burning off excess. You say, it's development. We'd say, it's an altar. You sacrifice seas for quarterly reports. Your God doesn't ask you, is it necessary? He whispers, is it profitable? And for profit, you drill the earth, blast mountains, clear forests. You even invented how to sell sins against the planet. Picture this: a carbon credit exchange. People in suits discussing numbers. This company pollutes 1 million tons, but bought credits from another. Everyone nods. Your planet suffocates, but you call it a market. It's like medieval indulgences. Pay, and your sin is forgiven. Earth burns, but the report looks good, so all is fine. We've seen civilizations that treated nature as sacred. Every mountain a temple, every river a song, every forest a school. For you, a mountain is a mine, a river is a shipping lane, a forest is furniture stock. Your God taught you to measure everything. You count trees in cubic meters. You measure oceans in barrels. You turn life into a price and lose life itself. Picture this. A man buying a bottle of water in a supermarket. It costs more than a liter of gasoline, and no one questions it. Water has become a product. Air too. In some cities, you already sell clean air in cans. Your God rejoices. Even breathing now brings profit. We've seen civilizations that drew a line. Up to this point we take, beyond this point we leave. You have no line. Your God doesn't know the word enough. His only word is more. You call it progress? We call it suicide with a checkbook. Your God promised you a heaven of goods. But the price of that heaven is empty seas, scorched forests, poisoned air. The irony is, one day you may have no buyers left. When your God consumes everything around him, he'll consume you too. You are certain that life without money is impossible, that if you remove your paper God, chaos will follow. That trade is the only glue of society. We know worlds where that's true, but we also know others, where money disappeared and people did not turn into beasts. They became freer. Picture this, a planet where the economy is a festival of gifts. Once a year, everyone gathers in a giant square. They bring each other things, food, knowledge, music. No one keeps track of who gave how much. No one assigns value. A gift isn't a transaction. It's recognition. I see you. Your logic would ask, but who gives more? Theirs laughs. Why give less when the joy of sharing is the reward itself? We know that in your libraries sits Ursula Le Guin. In her, the dispossessed. There was a world where property was considered an illness. They didn't even have a word for buy. There, one could only give or share. And you know what? They didn't live worse than you. They lived calmer. Picture this, a future where money has been abolished. You know the myth. Star Trek. There is no currency. Their wealth is knowledge, exploration, discovery. People work not because credit forces them to, but because they want to leave a mark on the universe. You call it fantasy. We call it history of civilizations that actually grew into the stars. Picture this, a world where money is replaced by time. Everyone is born with a stock of hours. When you work or create, hours increase. When you take from others, they decrease. You can't hoard more than you need. You can't steal another's life. In that world, there are no billionaires because the word excess doesn't exist. There is only balance. To you, it sounds like dystopia. To them, it sounds like fairness. We've seen worlds where economy was built on reputation. You're valuable not by what's in your wallet, but by what others say of you. Not by numbers, but by trust. In those societies, you cannot buy status. You can only earn it. You try to mimic this in social networks, but turned even reputation into a product. Likes, followers, bots. You turn everything into a market, even praise. Even your literature sometimes glimpsed alternatives. Asimov wrote of civilizations where crises were prevented not by wars for resources, but by rational planning. Where wealth was measured by social stability, not elite wallets. Le Guin wrote of Omelas, a city of happiness built on the suffering of one child. Your civilization lives exactly like that. Millions suffer so that a chosen few can bathe in luxury. But in her story, there were those who walked away, those who refused false happiness. Your God feels eternal to you. But we've seen money disappear. Whole civilizations abandoned it once they realized that trade and hoarding made them enemies of one another. They wiped out debts, destroyed coins, declared, "From this day, No one owes anyone. And they began anew. It wasn't an easy step, but it was a step into the future. You say, that's utopia. We say, it's already happened. We've seen civilizations where resources were shared according to needs, not wallets. Where work was chosen for interest, not profit. Where children grew up knowing their lives were valuable in themselves. Your so-called science fiction isn't fairy tales. It's mirrors. You look into them and dismiss them as fantasies. But in reality, they are your galactic neighbors. They already live this way. And you still pray to paper and digits. You call money a tool. We call it your God. A tool sits on the table, waiting to be used. A God demands worship. And you worship. Every day, with every purchase, with every thought of profit, you've built an entire religion around digits. Your dogmas are simple. Rich, Vanch, righteous. Poor, Banaj, guilty. Your scriptures are bank reports. Your miracles are interest rates growing by themselves. Your temples are stock exchanges and shopping malls. Your priests wear suits instead of robes. But they preach the same line. Serve our God, and you'll be saved. We watched you sacrifice the most precious things to this God. You gave your time, the best years of your life. You gave your health, sleepless nights, and stress. You gave your families divorces over debts and inheritances. You gave your friends broken by money fights, and you gave your planet burned for profit. You call this rational economy? We call it mass sacrifice. Your God tricked you with elegance. He promised you freedom. Freedom to buy, freedom to choose, freedom to be successful. But in reality, you became his slaves. Your days belong to paychecks, your weeks to credit, your years to mortgages, your old age to pensions. Your entire life is a chain of rituals feeding the paper idol. You say, without money we can't survive. But survival doesn't require money. It requires air, water, trust, and those you devalued. You turn them into merchandise. You sell water in bottles more expensive than food. You sell air in cans. You sell even your own time. You've built a society where everything has a price and almost nothing has value. We know civilizations where money disappeared, where it was replaced by friendship, trust, joy, where wealth was measured by children's happiness, not by zeros in accounts. You could choose that path, but you chose another. You made money your God, and now you worship not life, but its price tag, not meaning, but cost, not the present, but a number that is always not enough. The irony is this: you fear poverty so much that to avoid it, you sacrifice life itself. Your God promises you a paradise of purchases, but while you chase it, your days turn into a desert. You die rich and miserable, or poor and guilty, and in both cases, slaves. We have seen millions of worlds, and only in yours did money become the highest God. Not the sun, not the stars, not wisdom, not joy, paper, metal, digits. You build a civilization that measures everything and loses everything. Your God seems eternal, but he is as fragile as the paper you print him on, as imaginary as the number glowing in your phone. One system crash, and your heaven collapses. One blackout, and your wealthy is reduced to the same as the pauper he despised. You live as if money guarantees life, but money cannot stop death. It cannot return lost time. It cannot buy closeness. It can only promise to replace them with things, and things break faster than you can pay for them. We do not interfere. We only watch. But sometimes we wonder, what will remain of you when the digits disappear, when the paper turns to dust, when the metal tarnishes? you'll be left without your God. And then you'll have to decide, are you just carriers of numbers, or are you human? We will return, and we will see what you choose when, for the first time, you have nothing left to pay with. See you soon. We still have much more to tell about you.